In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up the Cradlepoint SDK on macOS. Hi, I'm Alex with Cradlepoint. If you want to build innovative applications on 5G devices, this video walks you through how to set up macOS so you can start building apps today. Let's get started. First, click the link below to access the Cradlepoint SDK Application Developers Guide. This will walk us through getting set up. In the table of contents, click on Environment. And then here under Application Development, we're going to put our router into Developer Mode. Developer Mode makes it easy to test and deploy code to a router. To put a router into Developer Mode, first log into NCM as a root administrator. Developer Mode routers cannot be in a group, so if your device is in a group, first move it to the main account folder. Then click on the Tools page on the left. If the Enable NCOS SDK slider is not active, go ahead and click on it to enable the SDK. Then click on Developer Mode Devices tab, click Add, select your device, and click OK. Now that your router is in developer mode, let's go back to the developer's guide for the next step. Click the link to download the Cradlepoint SDK repo from GitHub. On this page, click the Code button and then Download Zip. And then unzip this to a convenient place because we'll be working with it often. Now that you have the Cradlepoint SDK samples, let's go back to the developer's guide for the next step. Now we will follow instructions specific for our operating system, so go ahead and click the link for macOS. The first step is to download Python from python.org. Go ahead and click the main Downloads button, and then just click the big button to download the latest version for macOS. And go ahead and run the installer. Now that we have Python installed, let's go back to the developer's guide for the next step. Step 2 is to install Homebrew. So we'll copy this command, and then at a terminal, we'll paste it and hit Enter. Enter your password if prompted. And now that we've got Homebrew installed, let's go back to the developer's guide for the next step. Step 3 is to use Homebrew to install some libraries. So let's copy this first command here, and then paste it in your terminal and hit Enter. And then we'll copy the second command to install SSH-pass, and paste it and hit Enter. Now we'll copy and paste the following commands to install some Python libraries. Copy the first command to install pip, which will install other libraries. If it already exists, that's fine. Then copy the next line to install requests and paste it at the terminal. Then copy the command to install PyOpenSSL and paste it at the terminal. Enter. And the last one for cryptography. Paste that in there. Now under Useful Tools, click the link to download PyCharm. It's a Python development environment. On this page, scroll down to the Community Edition and click the link to download the DMG for your processor. I'm on Intel, so I'll click that one. Then go ahead and run the installer. Then go ahead and open PyCharm when complete. Click to open a project, then locate the SDK samples master folder that we downloaded earlier and click OK. Now you can see all the sample apps and see the README as well. PyCharm makes a great text editor. Let's use it to edit the SDK_settings.ini file in the main SDK samples master folder. The SDK settings.ini file has settings for the SDK to communicate with your developer mode router. So set the IP address, username, and password of your developer mode router. Now that you have the SDK settings configured, let's check to make sure everything's working correctly. Open a terminal at the SDK samples master folder. An easy way to do this on a Mac is to right-click on the SDK samples master folder, go to Services, then Open Terminal at Folder. The SDK includes a make.py script that performs utility functions such as creating, building, and installing applications. We will use it to check the status of our developer mode router to make sure that we're communicating with it. At the terminal, type python3 space make.py space status and hit Enter. You should see a response from the router that shows success is true, service is started. Most importantly, the mode is dev mode. That means our router's in developer mode. If you see any errors, check the SDK settings INI file to make sure that you have the correct IP address, username, and password for your router. If the router responds and shows that its mode is standard, check NCM to make sure that you've correctly added it to the developer mode devices, and then go ahead and reboot the routers to be sure. Now that we've got everything set up and we're communicating with the router, we're ready to build apps. So make sure you check out the next video on how to create your first app. Thanks for watching.